Jacob Albracht, Tommy Castor. This is Sports Daily on Wichita's #1 sports radio, 97.5 and 1240 KFH.
All right, everybody, welcome into a Friday edition of Sports Daily, TGIF. Jacob Albracht, Tommy Castor here. Chad Chambers producing for us, man in that KFH hotline, in which we'll have a little giveaway later in the show, give away some HTOT and coffee. We'll be joined on that hotline by Wyatt Thompson, the voice of the K-State Wildcats, a little bit later, and taking your calls there. Happy to be with you. Sorry about the deep freeze again. At least it's a short one this time. I saw next weekend will be in the 50s, is what it looks like.
I love that. That sounds great.
Break out the bikinis and let's go swimming after what we've been dealing with the last, 15, 20 days or so. Glad to be here with you. Of course, it's ahead of the big divisional round weekend in the NFL. We'll have plenty to talk about with the Chiefs. We've got a Shockers game from last night to get through as well. And then looking ahead to a Big 12 basketball weekend that's always very appetizing. Tommy, how are you this morning?
Man, I'm good. I'm ready for the weekend. It's been a long week, busy week, a lot going on. Ready to sort of just, chill, watch some college basketball, watch some playoff football. Where my wife and I are talking about taking our boys to Dave & Buster's this weekend, which is always just a chaotic time, but it's always a lot of fun.
It's fun.
There'll be games on. They can play they can play their own games. I can watch football, so it should be good.
We'll let everybody know that Dave & Buster's is not a client here at the show, nor is Chuck E. Cheese. So this is a discussion that's based solely from the heart for now. Tommy, I'm team Chuck E. Cheese for sure.
Okay.
I like Dave & Buster's. I think it's a great place. My kids are in that fringe age, though, where I'm not sure they can fully enjoy Dave & Buster's appropriately. They're not quite old enough. And so they want to just play everything they can as fast as they can.
Yeah.
Where
that's the way my kids are too. Like my toddler, he doesn't know what's going on.
So I have to take them by myself because there's apparently this perception that it's not as cool. I like to take them to like Chuck E. Cheese and some of the other places. There's a lot of good options for that kind of stuff around town. And it's all fun. I love taking kids to the video game places. I love playing video games with my kids.
Let me tell you why I settled on Dave & Buster's for tomorrow. It's because it actually has a little bit to do with you and another friend of ours. We've been talking about texting, at least I have been, about wanting to go to the casino to watch football.
Yeah, and
right? And you can't do it. You're too busy. You've got other things going on. And I can't, just leave my kids if I can't go to the casino by myself. Right.
Right.
So the next best thing is Dave & Buster's. And so it's kind of like a casino. It's video games, it's arcade, that sort of thing. So it's not quite going to the casino to watch football, but it's close enough.
Yeah, it is. There's a local. Have you been to the arcade downtown? It's got more like retro games back from our day. They just went into a new facility. I took my kid to a birthday party there. Also a fun option. And they do have a bar.
Okay.
Like all these places we're talking about. But yeah, there are a lot of good options. The casino thing, I want to get out there too. These last 2 weeks have been absurdly busy. I don't know why. I don't know if right after the first of the year, everything piles in. Of course, it's all the wrong kinds of busy too, with end of year taxes and financials, all that stuff comes in right now too. But I think for the casino, what we need to do is just go out for a Big 12 basketball weekend, right? When the dust settles and things chill a little bit, it doesn't have to be NFL playoff weekend, or it doesn't have to be March Madness. What
I
about
would
just
do
like
that. That'd be fun.
what about just like a Big 12 basketball Saturday? You know, like where there are going to be good college basketball games all day long. But we will make that happen at some point. I love casinos as much as anything in the world. I'm at them far less than in my younger days, which is a great thing. I was a little concerned about that when I moved to a state that had them, especially one 20 or 30 minutes away, and especially when you can play craps at that casino. But I've been out there maybe 2-3 times. Like, it has not been what I thought it might be, and that's good for everyone because I do
it's probably
enjoy my time
good
there.
for your good for your pocketbook.
Yeah, I am, as you might imagine by listening to this show and how much we love the betting aspect of things. Yeah, it'll be a big weekend, and it'll be fun no matter where you're watching these football games. We're going to pick those football games with Paul Savage coming up in our second hour as well. Tommy, let's talk a little bit just right here off the top about the Shockers last night. The more I thought about it, like it became a 16-point line at the time of the game tipping off. And we talked a little bit yesterday about the fact that Florida Atlantic had not beaten anybody by more than 15 points in 7 games. They have been very Jekyll and Hyde this year. They have some really good wins like Arizona, which we would expect and did expect. And they have some head-scratching losses too. They've been an interesting team. But I sort of went into it and was like, well, Wichita State needs to be able to play within that number because everybody they're playing is playing with that in that number. I don't know what to make of all of this in totality, but they were in that game, led that game at 2 different points. I don't know if I'm more annoyed they can't hold a lead. I don't know if I'm more pleased that they had a lead. I don't know what to think. But they did cover the number at least. And now they're through that stretch of basketball games where, if we really go back and look at this run of how many games has that been now? 7 of 8
6.
they've lost?
Yeah.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 of 9 that they've lost. So it really started with the Missouri game. I think when we look at the schedule and say, here's where this difficult stretch starts, it's Missouri, those games, they've won one of them, and it was against Southern Illinois. If we look at it, we would have expected them going in to beat South Dakota State at home, right? That one was the first one where you're like, what? So we would have expected that win, and I think we would have expected a Temple win. Everything else, right? Missouri, K-State, KU, North Texas, Memphis, Florida Atlantic. I think we wouldn't have expected a win. You'd like for them to have won a couple of those, but they didn't. And they are, I think, what they are. And so I don't know. Now that that's in the rearview mirror, and you come up on South Florida, who, by the way, beat Memphis last night, East Carolina, SMU, Tulsa, before you quickly get to Memphis and Florida Atlantic again, we're looking at a stretch of 4 games here where perhaps we're going to get a much more realistic look at what the Shockers' ceiling is, I hope, because South Florida just beat Memphis. SMU's been high in the KenPom all year. You turn around and Memphis and Florida Atlantic both come in your next 6 games, I think, again. They don't get any good scheduling relief until February, the last 7 games of the year. And I fear this thing continuing to snowball on them. And we look at some point in the conference standings, and there will be Wichita State sitting at 2-8. And you'll never be able to overcome that. And a lot of that does have to do with the order of the games in which they play. But it is what it is. And so I don't know what to think when I watch games like last night. I mean, I'm encouraged at a large part of the games of the way that they're playing and that they had those leads. And, Quincy Ballard was really good last night and all those things, but they're still not winning the games. And ultimately, you need to win some of the games.
I think the difference maker last night is just the experience that Florida Atlantic has as a team. I mean, so many different returners and a coach that led the team to the Final Four last season. And the Shockers, I mean, it was kind of like a heavyweight bout. The Shockers got up early, and then every time that Florida Atlantic made a little bit of a run, Wichita State was right back there to punch back. And that went on for a while. Shockers had an 11-point lead at one point. You and I were texting back and forth, and I think the words you used were, this is the best the Shockers have played all season by far. And that was the truth. And I agreed with you. And then here comes Florida Atlantic, and it was very quick. And all of a
sudden,
then
they got another 11-point lead, though.
Yep. You blink, and then all of a sudden Florida Atlantic's right back in it. And then here come the Shockers again. So it was body blow after body blow after body blow. But I think the experience of Florida Atlantic won out ultimately, because the one thing I noticed about the Owls is that they never wavered. I never watched them on the bench or on the court, never saw their coach, never saw any kind of panic that came over them. It was kind of like, let's just absorb what's happening. Let's make sure that we are able to get ourselves in a position to get back in the game. And they did that not just once, but multiple times last night. And I think that ultimately won out for Florida Atlantic. The big picture for Wichita State, I get it that everybody is going to look at the really, really obvious. And that obvious is the first 6-game losing streak in 15 years for Wichita State. I get it. I understand that. And I'm not going to be an apologist here and say that that's acceptable, because it's absolutely not. But context is important. And when you look at the context of how this is all played out with the schedule, now, I think that the schedule fell in a way where I don't think anybody expected a ton of success in that stretch, but certainly not 0-6. There were absolutely a couple of winnable games in that stretch that Wichita State just weren't able to get it done. And even against the top 2 teams in the conference, Memphis and Florida Atlantic, they held leads in both of those games, and then they gave those leads up. So I think you can look at it a glass half full, or you can look at it a glass half empty. I mean, I think that it's going to probably be split right down the middle, where it's like, okay, well, are they making progress? They're hanging with the top teams in the conference for a while, so that's a good thing. But then you look at the negative, and obviously they're not getting the wins that they want. And so it's certainly something that I know is being addressed, will continue to be addressed, because this sort of thing, we're just not accustomed to with Shocker basketball. It's been a long time since we've been in this particular stretch.
My glass half full is emptying quickly. And that's I want to be encouraged that they had 2 different 11-point leads over Florida Atlantic on the road last night, but you have to win that game, right? If you've got an 11-point lead halfway through the game, you've got to be able to win that game. Memphis was different, right? Memphis felt like you could see it coming. Florida Atlantic, though, you can say what you want about how good and experienced they are. Florida Atlantic this year has lost games to Bryant, Florida Gulf Coast, and Charlotte, right? And Illinois, which that one you can throw that one out because Illinois is really good. But Bryant, Florida Gulf Coast are both well under Wichita State in the Ken Palm. Charlotte's not. Yeah. Charlotte's been a nice little story, but it's not like Florida Atlantic isn't capable of losing these games. We've seen them do it 3 times this year. And look, one of those came at home. Wichita State needs to be able to win games. They're up by 11 in the second. It's great that they got the 11-point lead. Finish the game. You know what I mean? Like, I'm more encouraged than if they had gone to Boca Raton and been totally outmatched and outclassed. Don't get me wrong. But I also feel like you got to point out the fact that that's a game you should have won when you're up 11 later in the game. Like, you got to be able to win those games. I don't care who you're playing. So it's kind of the same thing. We're through the stretch.
I don't disagree with that whatsoever. I think where a big question comes in is the state of the program overall from a 30-foot view, and the belief in Coach Mills and the belief in the way the program is being built. And you and I have had tons of conversations on this program about expectations in year 1, and of course, long-term expectations as well. I don't know how that wavers. I don't know how that changes in a 6-game losing streak when you're 0-5 in conference play. I don't know how that. I don't know how that changes, or if that changes at all.
One of my, if not my greatest flaw, is my impatience. I'm aware of it. I am an impatient person, for good, for worse, whatever. So I'm trying to not let that not give me a sound look at this, because I am impatient. I don't think that it should take long in today's version of college basketball to do what you need to do when you're at a program that has the things that Wichita State has. I don't think there should ever be years where they finish in 8th place in the American Athletic Conference, right? There should never be years where they finish worse than 5th place. That's my expectation for the program, and I'm admittedly a very impatient person. So to continue to be told to just have patience while this team gets where it needs to be is a really difficult thing for me to do. I don't know if that's realistic. I don't know if that's reality. It's my own reality. And so I get frustrated when I see that they have an 11-point lead on the road like that, and they can't close that out to get what would certainly be their biggest win of the year. There's no question, and could be a momentum shifting like linchpin of their season. Now it's just another game you lost in a row. You know what I mean? And so I'm trying and have been trying to say, get through the Florida Atlantic game, and then let's see what happens in those next 4. But the only thing that in those next 4 is going to make me say, all right, here we go, is for them to win all 4 of them, right? Like you got to do like something like that where it's like, okay, here we go. We got it. I am encouraged that we see them. And I think exactly what I texted you last night. Yeah. This is the best they've looked collectively. Like they look good offensively against Memphis, but they look terrible defensively against Memphis. The early part of that game and the 2 runs they made, they looked engaged and locked in, and like what they were doing in those moments, because it wasn't just like hitting a bunch of lucky shots or anything like that. Like they were legitimately, they had Florida Atlantic on the ropes. That does give me encouragement. If you can find that and sustain it, I think this team will be much better, but they haven't been able to do that now. And like, look, we are how many games into this season now? We're in, as we look at the year, 17 games into this season, right? Mm-hmm. Many of these players are returners. So it's not good enough right now. Everybody knows that. I just need to know how much better it's going to get this year. And I can't take more than 1 year of this.
Yeah, here's the caveat for me. The only asterisk I'll put on this for me personally, I'm not going to speak for you in this, but I was very clear on this program when Isaac Brown was let go and when Paul Mills came in that, and you and I were on the same page about this, that the grass isn't always greener on the other side. And so the expectations are going to be high in year number 1 to get to where the Shockers need to go. There's not the time for a rebuild with this program. You've got to be able to win right away with the returners that were coming back, and then being able to utilize transfer players and things like that to make at least this team competitive in year number 1 over Paul Mills. Under Paul Mills. Now, the only caveat I will make on that, the only amendment that I will make on that statement that I made back in, when was that, March, April, when we had those conversations, is that I've gotten to hear Paul Mills speak multiple times during the course of this season, and I like what he has to say. And I think that he is motivated to make the changes. And I think that he is thoughtful. And I think that he's working on changing things and open to, making adjustments and doing all of that. So I do appreciate that about him, where I don't feel like we always got that with Isaac Brown. It was always like, we're going to just keep doing what we're doing.
Yeah. Isaac Brown was not comfortable with the media, number one. Like he wasn't going to give anything ever. I know that about him. Yeah. He was not comfortable.
But I do appreciate that about Paul Mills, that he's willing to be upfront and say, this is not acceptable. Here's what we're going to change. Here's what we're going to do. Everything is on the table. Let's make this better. So that's my one caveat. It doesn't the expectations that I have, but I do appreciate the personality that he is. And I think that he is going to be the guy to turn that around.
I hope he is. Got to win games, because I'll tell you right now, and this is what's always worried me. I know great Shocker fans right now that aren't even engaged enough to know they're playing a game on whatever night. Yeah. That's reality. And that's the danger. That is the long-term danger, and why it needed to be quick if you're making the change, because that was already setting in for 2 years. You can't pile on top of that now.
Yeah. You got to stem the tide and turn things around immediately.
869-1240 KFH hotline. Joining us on that hotline when we return, the voice of the K-State Wildcats, Wyatt Thompson. Boy, things going swimmingly in Manhattan. We'll talk about it next.
Your phone call is welcome. 869-1240. Sports Daily on 97.5 and 1240. KFH, Wichita's #1 sports radio.
Save big money on your bathroom upgrade at Menards. Homeworks creates thoughtfully designed bath fans that will align perfectly with your style. A modern smart vent bath fan with humidity sensing, a dimmable LED light, and a dual-colored nightlight is the perfect addition for your bathroom. The motion sensor automatically chooses which light should activate based on ambient lighting. It's on sale for $129.99. Hurry in, prices good through January 21st. Now at Menards.
Save big money at Menards.
Spangles would like to know, is it pecan or pecan? We're not sure, but we do know you'll go nuts over the Spangles Caramel Pecan Pie Slide. It's a slice of hot, tasty pecan pie layered with our lactose-free vanilla soft serve and drizzled with Ghirardelli sea salt caramel. Whichever way you say it, the Spangles Pecan Pie Slide is only at Spangles.
Freshness made to order. Spangles just taste better.
Rich, full-bodied vanilla with a touch of sweetness and Jim Beam whiskey. And a Pepsi. It's the newest cocktail taste sensation at Spangles. The rich taste of vanilla, the smooth taste of Jim Beam whiskey, and Pepsi. It's a tasty combination. Get your hands wrapped around a new vanilla Jim Beam whiskey and Pepsi cocktail at Spangles. It's delicious and available for a limited time right now at Spangles.
Spangles, it just tastes better.
Turnpike Troubadours are coming to Wichita Friday, May 3rd at Intrust Bank Arena.
I always kept the best for you.
Turnpike Troubadours with Trampled by Turtles and the Red Clay Straight.
That old sun better rise up soon.
Tickets are available through selectaseat.com and Arena Box Office.
Mama warned you.
Don't miss Turnpike Troubadours with Trampled by Turtles and the Red Clay Strays. Friday, May 3rd at Intrust Bank Arena. Produced by Maverick.
The NFL playoffs live on Odyssey. Westwood One brings you all the action from the divisional round, streaming live on the free Odyssey app.
And off McCaffrey runs the powers into the end zone. Touchdown 49ers.
Each team is one step closer to the big game.
Lamar Jackson throws it up for grabs and likely out jumps the defense to bring it down.
Listen to every game live for Westwood One. Get in the game and download the free Odyssey app today. AUDACY.
Now during Staples Print Big Sale, get $20 off your print purchase of $100 or more, $50 off your print purchase of $200 or more, and $100 off your print purchase of $300 or more. So the more you print at Staples, the more you save. To demonstrate, print at Staples, you save. But if you print at Staples, you save. See how that works? Staples Print Big Sale. Print more, save more, up to $100. Ends 2/10. Visit staples.com/print for details.
Wendy's new breakfast 2 for $3 Biggie Bundles let you create your own delicious combo. Choose from a sausage biscuit, egg and cheese biscuit, small seasoned potatoes, and a medium hot coffee. But it's obvious which combo's the best. Sausage biscuit and small seasoned potatoes. Well, maybe it's the fresh cracked egg and cheese biscuit with a medium hot coffee. Or 2 savory sausage biscuits. Whichever you pick, you can't go wrong. Choose wisely. Choose Wendy's new 2 for $3 Biggie Bundles.
Limited time only. U.S. price and participation may vary. Non-relevant combo. Single item at regular price.
Look around. You can find cars like these on AutoTrader. Like that car riding your tail. Or if you're tailgating right now, all those cars doubling as kitchens and living rooms are on AutoTrader too. Are you working out and listening to this ad at the same time? Well, multitasking pro, cars like the ones in the gym parking lot are for sale on AutoTrader. New cars, used cars, electric cars, maybe even flying cars. Okay, no flying cars, but as soon as they get invented, they'll be on AutoTrader. Just you wait. AutoTrader.
Hey there, it's Delana from Castor. A few items coming in this time of year. We have the largest selection around here. To keep the metal flush off your carpet. Lots of new colors also in this collection. And don't forget the ice shield technology are protecting against objects from the sun and feeling on the way. We also offer the no stop UVC coverage. So stop by today for your winter gear at Choice Factory on our Central Washington.
Tricked out, check us out. Truck stuff.
In our house, every man is a Wildcat.
Bang! He got it! What a shot!
Join head coach Jerome Kay every game for the excitement that is Kansas State Wildcat basketball.
There's a lot. Oh my goodness, a stop over his head. 3-point try again. Now it's switch.
Your front row seat to every game is right here.
Scores and an and one.
On your home for Kansas State Wildcat basketball.
K-State hosting Oklahoma State, 5 o'clock p.m. Saturday, right here on KFH. Brought to you by Taco Bell.
The commercials are over.
Yo, I haven't got all day.
869-1240.
Time to get busy.
This is Sports Daily on KFH.
Your new radio home for K-State Athletics, 97.5 and 1240 KFH. It's that time, Sports Daily, getting all the inside information on Kansas State. Let's go now to the voice of the Wildcats, Wyatt Thompson.
All right, and we welcome back in Wyatt Thompson for another visit with us here on Sports Daily. Jacob Albracht, Tommy Castor with you. Jad Chambers producing. Wyatt, happy Friday to you. Sorry we're in another cold stretch here, but it is Friday, getting ready for a weekend where you get to stay at home, right? You get to hang this weekend and welcome in Oklahoma State tomorrow. I bet so.
Yeah. We've got a lot going, bud, and good to be on with you guys again. We've got a lot of former K-State men's basketball players, Golden Cats, that will be here tomorrow. I think they're going to recognize the football team at some point tomorrow as Pop-Tarts Bowl champions, and played so well the other night against Baylor. People are excited right now, and Saturday home games in this league are a lot of fun, and I'm looking forward to it. I know Oklahoma State hasn't played as well as they've wanted to this year, but they're certainly, like everybody in the league, pretty capable. So let's see how it plays out.
Yeah, let's talk about that Baylor game, Wyatt. It was just a lot of fun to watch, and obviously taking down a top 10 team in the Baylor Bears, and the relationship between Scott Drew and Jerome Tang, that 4-point play in overtime from Arthur Kaluma. And by the way, I have to mention your call on that 4-point play in overtime was incredible. So that was awesome to hear. And that entire game, the stretch where they closed the gap to force overtime and then winning the game in overtime. What was that like for you on the call for that game?
It was just thrilling, to be honest with you. You live for those types of games. And to be honest, I've done a lot of games, but I don't know that I can remember one right off the top of my head where you almost felt like they were done twice. And you mentioned that. I mean, they're down 51-45 late in regulation. Probably a little bit fortunate in a way to get the thing to overtime. And then they're down in overtime with a minute to go and find a way and close the game on a 9-0 run. I've been here a long time. This is my 22nd year at K-State, and I've seen Bramlage rocking and be very, very loud. But there were a couple of times the other night where I thought it was as loud as I've ever heard it, sincerely. And we've had some good tight tens games here, whether it's Mizzou, Kansas, Texas, whatever it might be. That was pretty special the other night.
When we look at that rivalry, and I know how hard it is on both of those guys, Tang and Drew, to play in those games. Right. I think they have a good attitude about it, but man, you can almost just know, and we've only done it 3 times, but it's going to be hard to imagine those two playing while they're both at those respective universities and not getting that kind of game. I think sometimes that just happens, and it feels like this is one of those spots.
I'm totally with you on that. There's so many things that you think about when you think of those guys. I mean, Coach Tang spent 19 years there, and they call each other brothers. They're very tight. They talk a lot. I think stylistically they're very similar in how they structure their teams. And the one thing that I will say about Scott Drew that impresses me a lot is that when he started to build a thing in the early days, when they started winning, they played pretty much just zone deep, and they played it well. Don't misunderstand. But as they got better and better and better players, they went from just setting in a zone and shooting a lot of threes to just being really gifted. And the other night, you look at their numbers, and for K-State to hold them to just under 33% field goal shooting is nuts. I'm so impressed with what Coach Tang has done with this team defensively, and I know he's working to make them better offensively. And I think it's slower, of course, but I think we've got some good basketball ahead of us. Tough stretches too. I mean, next week we're Wednesday night in Ames, and next Saturday in Houston. Doesn't get a whole lot tougher than that, but He's done a great job, and I know it is hard for him, honestly. And yet, there's part of me that thinks they kind of like it too. Do you think that makes sense? I mean, did you see?
Yeah,
I don't know if you saw the video of them coming out of the tunnel, but whatever they were giggling about, they were having a real chuckle over it. That was special in my mind.
Wyatt, that was the 4th overtime game that the Wildcats have played this season, and they're 4-0 in those overtime games, including that 3-game stretch in the non-conference. As we get more deep into Big 12 play and then into tournament play in March, how important do you think having that experience of playing in tight games, going into overtime and winning those games are for this team?
Well, it's a good question. I think the easy answer is that it has to help, right? I mean, it is hard. And one thing that has stuck out for me is that, in the time that Coach Tang has been here, we've won a ton of close games. We haven't won them all, but we've won a bunch of close games. He's now 10-0 in overtime in less than 2 full seasons. That's crazy. I don't even know how you try to go about explaining how good that is. But I think what sticks out for me is they did this coming off of the heels where they, by their own admission, let one get away, kind of gave one away at Tech last Saturday. And I mean, it bothered them. They were mad that they were, I guess I'll describe it as just out toughed down the stretch. And Tech was the better team and the tougher team and the team that executed better. And I think they took it personally. They really were cut in learning the scout and really did a great job against a very explosive offensive team. It was impressive. There's no doubt about it.
How much, if you're looking at this and trying to do it objectively, Wyatt? I mean, I very early it was like, oh, this is nice. K-State's out to a good start in the league. Now it seems more sustainable. It seems like in what we know will be a back and forth year, K-State probably is one of the teams that will be competing near the top of the league this year. I think it's almost like we've had to, in a positive way, had to refocus expectations, I think, for the conference schedule.
I agree with that wholeheartedly. And I think when you talk about this, you have to look at the league in its entirety. I've done a lot of interviews this week and have talked about this quite a bit. I think when this conference season started, I don't know if anybody thought that 2 weeks in, everybody would have at least one loss. Do you agree with that? I mean, it just seems like that's a little bit of an oddity when you have so many good teams in this league, whether it's Baylor, Kansas, whoever it might be. And I sometimes you have a hard time making sense of UCF as an example. I've used this example of UCF and Cincinnati here the last few days. UCF gets blasted here 77-52. Then they host Kansas and beat them. Then they host BYU and they get beat. So my point is on that is that I don't know that you can go into any game in the league or most games in the league and really kind of have a feel for, well, this is what's going to happen. It's staggering, really, how many games have been decided by less than 10 or a couple of possessions. And I think we're going to continue to see that. I just do. I think this league is really, really strong up and down the line. You have to kind of think that even though KU lost a game already, you probably still have to think, with their skill set, they're going to be there towards the end. But I mean, they were 13-5 in this league last year. What do you think they're going to be this time?
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? I don't know that they're going to be better or worse than that. Yeah.
It's a battle of attrition, and that's the way the Big 12 always is. It's always a bloodbath, and we're only a few games into the conference. I know that I feel like I always bring up every week Tyler Perry, and it was the game against Baylor, another not great shooting night for Tyler, but he did get to the free throw line and he made his free throws. So after the game against Baylor, how do you assess his play? Do you think that the opportunities for him to at least get to the foul line will maybe help loosen him up a little bit shooting from the field, or where do you stand on where Tyler's game is right now?
Well, I enjoy talking about this, to be honest with you, because the longer I'm around him and start to get to have a better feel for who he is, what he is, he's a pretty unique individual. And I'm not talking so much the physical part that he brings to the table, but more the mental. He's really cut in now and wants to be, the leader of the team and the vocal guy. And he wasn't necessarily that in the beginning. And he knows he's struggling a little bit shooting the ball. But as I think we mentioned last week, he's had to take a lot of hard shots. And I think as this team continues to move forward and try to get better offensively, they're trying a lot of different things. And I don't know if, exactly what the answers are. And I don't know that the coaches know. But one thing that should help, I'll say that again, should help, is that they're starting to get a little bit more out of some of the other guys, which I think will help Tyler. I don't know if you would agree with that thought or not, but as an example, did anybody think that 4 games into the league race that Dorian Finister would be averaging 5.3 points a game and playing those kind of minutes? Or Jarrell Colbert would come in against that kind of talent and give you 17, 18 really quality minutes? He wasn't dominant, but guys, he was playing against 2 studs and really held his own and did well. And they need his athleticism. Will McNair's a nice player, and I think he's continuing to get better too. But against Baylor, and there are going to be others, they need Jarrell's athleticism because he's a little bit more athletic than Will. So there are a lot of things on the table that I think you should look at in relation to Tyler having better looks, and maybe getting that percentage up and maybe being a little bit more of a consistent scorer other than just at the foul line. Because, hey, it's a nice thing when he's fouled late because he's going to make most.
Yeah. They're just going to keep going and just don't change it. They're winning games. I think if they were losing games, we'd have a totally different conversation, but I like it. So you look at a stretch here.
Yeah.
The next time we'll talk, they will have played Oklahoma State and at Iowa State, which always feels like a fool's errand. But those are two. If you're going to talk about K-State potentially, winning this league and doing all of those things, these are 2 games you need to be able to go get, right? Even that tough one in Ames, but there won't be many gettable stretches on the schedule. This might be one of them.
Yeah, I agree with that. And it is hard at Hilton. But K-State has won up there before. You can't take it for granted because if I'm being honest, Iowa State's come to Bramlage and won too. That's just kind of the league. But I understand what you're saying. If you could get that, I almost look at, again, Coach Stang would probably hit me in the nose if he heard me say this, but if you could split next week's games and beat Oklahoma State Saturday, you'd probably feel pretty good about where you're at. Don't you think? I mean, that's you start to do the math here. This league race is long and grueling and tough and all of that. But in the same breath, it goes pretty quick. And there are only so many opportunities with 18 games. You got to go out there and get that one that you think you can get. And that's why I think they were so frustrated with the game at Tech, because for a lot of the game, I'm going to say for 28, 30 minutes, they probably were the better team. And that hurts when you're that close and don't do it on the road because they're so hard to come by.
Wyatt, what do you make of the Oklahoma State program? Obviously, they're struggling right now. They're not in a great place. I wonder, do you think that Mike Boynton, his job potentially is in trouble? Where do you stand on where things are with Oklahoma State?
Well, I haven't really heard any rumblings of that yet. It may be a little bit different when they get into town today. We'll see how that plays out. I think Mike's a good coach, but I think he's fighting uphill in a league right now with 4 freshmen on the roster and 2 of those guys starting, and that's a hard way to make a living. Even though those kids are, their center is a McDonald's All-American, and their 4-man is a 4-star kid. That's high-level talent. But, I mean, that kid Garrison was going up against a guy by the name of Hunter Dickinson the other night. You're going to get whooped in those kind of situations. That's just the way it is. I've watched a lot of tape on OSU, and there are times when they look pretty good. But, we've talked about K-State offensively from time to time, where one thing, too, I didn't mention that it reminds me of this with OSU. Like K-State, they've had some troubles with turnovers. You can't go on the road, even sometimes at home, and do that. And that's kind of what's gotten them into trouble. I watched, I think, like 3 straight possessions against Kansas where they're really, I'm not saying KU doesn't defend. I don't mean it that way, but there was very little, defensive resistance, and they turned the ball over. It's like unforced errors in tennis, right? You can't do that and compete. And they didn't compete. But I'm going to guess that they'll think they can here, at least initially. So you got to take the fight out of them early. But they are young. They're just not quite as good as most everybody else in the league. That's just kind of what it is.
Yeah, and you mentioned it's going to be a big night of celebration there, so I know fans will be excited about that, probably driving up, certainly here from Wichita. You will hear the game with us right here on KFH. Wyatt's Call. Coverage begins at 5 o'clock for the 6 o'clock tip. Wyatt, enjoy the time at home this weekend, and we'll just keep slogging through what's going to be an incredible Big 12 this year.
I know. I'm looking forward to it. Try to let it warm up a little bit, will you?
Yeah, I'll get with our meteorologist there at K-Witch and see what
go.
I can do. I've been on them for a while. It's not working yet, but we'll
all, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
4 guys don't shoot the messenger, right? Thanks, Wyatt. We'll talk to you soon. All right, there goes Wyatt Thompson, voice of the K-State Wildcats. If you missed any of that, by the way, you can go back and listen for free on the Odyssey app. We podcast that out for you, make it easy on you. Speaking of that Odyssey app, you know what else you can find? Chiefs games. They're available live for free on KNSS, as it will be this weekend. You can tune into KNSS Sunday night for the wild card action. If you're not around your radio, the Chiefs in Buffalo, a battle against the Bills, you can also just download the Odyssey app and search KNSS at kickoff. Tommy and I will be back. We'll get into that playoff game and others. Paul Savage in, top of the hour to make picks. Lots to get to here on a Friday edition of Sports Daily. Welcome back in, everybody. Sports Daily here on a Friday. Jacob Albracht, Tommy Castor alongside you. Let's give away some HTO here out of the gates. Mix it up a little bit for you. How about a free iced tea and a free Brewhouse coffee drink coming your way from HTO? You can do that. The tea is available at Wichita's West East location or in Derby. The coffee is good in Derby or East Wichita. Good luck to the KFH hotline right now. First caller, 869-1240. Tommy, on that, did you see Rip? We're teaming up with Rip. Are you a Yellowstone guy?
Yeah, we watch Yellowstone. Rip is one of the most terrifying characters that I've ever seen on TV.
One of the most amazing characters. He is like a character on television that universally every single person that watches the show has a crush on. Man crush, girl crush, whatever it is. Like, we all think Rip is totally awesome. Yeah,
I would never want to be on his bad side.
No. He's got a coffee thing. He's got like a whole coffee company, and we're going to start selling it in our store here pretty soon. I'll have more details on that. I don't have a date for you, but the news is out there. It's not like I'm revealing some secret here, but that's been pretty cool. Right now, it's our Brewhouse coffee, which is also very, very good, so you can get that. Good luck to everybody in the winner. Jad will get us on the giveaway. Jad will get us a winner. Real quick, Tommy, KU basketball, I don't know if we'll have time to get into them specifically. You know, we talked about a gettable stretch there with Wyatt for K-State. West Virginia, Cincinnati, Iowa State, Oklahoma State in the next 4. That's gettable and should be gettable, and it's a stretch for a team that has national championship aspirations. I want them 4-0.
Yeah, I get that, and I would like to see that too. Morgantown is a very difficult place to play. I don't
this
care.
Year, it's not.
I think it is. I mean, it doesn't matter how down the team is. They're tough. You know, and the fans are tough, and that's a tough environment to play in. I mean, did you watch the K-State game against West Virginia and Morgantown? I mean, I know the Wildcats won the
K-State
game.
beat them by 14.
Yeah, but it was close down the stretch.
They
and then
beat
Kansas
Texas.
State pulled
I'll
away.
give you Texas. They beat Texas.
Morgantown is a difficult place to play, and it doesn't matter what the record is for the Mountaineers. It's always and KU has always had a difficult time going into Morgantown. Now the difference is Bob Huggins is not there, right? That's the difference from previous years to now. But still, like it's going to be
I'll
difficult.
give you Oklahoma State because of the demons in that building. Okay. But West Virginia has losses to Virginia, St. John's, Pittsburgh, in Morgantown. They almost lost to Bellarmine this year in Morgantown. This isn't our father's West Virginia. This isn't our West Virginia from a year ago. I don't want any excuses. Kansas needs to go to Morgantown and win that game and win it, you know, in a relatively comfortable fashion. And they need to go 4-0 in this next stretch. This is a team we expect to contend for a national championship. They need to go 4-0 in these games against these teams. Cincinnati might be the outlier. Cincinnati's been good this year, but West Virginia
State's been good this year too.
You've got roadies against West Virginia and Iowa State mixed in there, and I think they need to go 4-0. That's because that's where they'll need to be if they're like, you know, they need to be that kind of team by the end of the year. It's not like it's not going to be tragic if they don't, but that's the level of team they're going to need to be if they want to win a national championship. Why not start now? They had a really nice Oklahoma State performance. They're not very good. West Virginia is better than that. Iowa State certainly better than that. KU should beat anybody anywhere.
The best part about the Oklahoma State game earlier this week was the Jayhawks finally flexed a little bit,
Yes.
And they finally put their foot on somebody's throat. And that's the kind of performance and outcome that you come to expect from a team that I get it, that they've got national championship aspirations. Morgantown, though, is a difficult place to play. I'm expecting a win, but I don't think it's going to be a blowout like it was for Oklahoma State.
I hope it is. I think it maybe should be. I won't say it needs to be in Iowa State, but the way West Virginia's played this year, it kind of needs to be in Morgantown. K-State beat them by 14 in Morgantown. There's your benchmark, KU fans. And KU, go get that. That's what we need to see out of the Jayhawks.
K-State also beat UCF by 25, and then UCF beat Kansas. So, it's the Big 12. Who knows what's going to happen?
That's right. I love the Big 12. God, it's so good. All right, we'll welcome in our buddy Paul Savage next segment. Congratulations to Daniel for winning some HTO Brewhouse coffee and some HTO, of course, iced tea. We'll come back. We're making some football picks, playoff edition, our last picks of the year. We'll go over the standings and make the picks when we return.
Jacob Albracht, Tommy Castor. This is Sports Daily on Wichita's #1 sports radio, 97.5 and 1240 KFH.
All right, welcome back in, everybody. Hour number 2, and that means on a Friday we welcome in Paul Savage for a round of picks. Again, our final week of picks for the season. We have picked close to 200 games this year. We've done a pretty good job. Paul and I are making money, a little bit of money. Tommy's slightly under 500. So here's the situation. I'm at 95, 84, and 7. 11 games over 500. Paul is at 92, 87, and 7. 5 games over 500. Tommy is 89, 90, and 7. We've had the 7 pushes throughout the year, which we keep in play because we're using actual lines and we know that we can actually bet. There have been years on the program where we rounded those lines to a half point. We're not doing that this year because we want to give actual perspective on games that people can bet. But so we have 4 games to pick, and I am up on Paul. Now, if I get them all wrong and he gets them all right, he can pass me. Tommy, you're playing for second place here. You're the same margin behind Paul. You cannot catch me. So what we're going to do today to keep this interesting and not just have me coast in, of which I would never do, I support the shot clock in high school basketball, if you know what I mean.
Gotcha. Okay.
I will pick first each time.
All right.
Paul will pick second each time. Tommy will pick third each time. That will allow Tommy, if he chooses, to go against Paul every time to try and close the gap. That will allow Paul, if he chooses, to go against me every time to close the gap. It's basically a bet on me to go 0-4 if Paul wants to try to win this. We'll see how he handles it. But keep that in mind as you're listening to everybody make picks today. Keep that aspect of this contest in mind.
Right. I need you to pull a Tommy. That's what I need. I need a Tommy out of you. Tommy, of course, I'm referring to. Paul. I'm referring to your 0-10.
I know.
Oh, I really Tommied this week. I kind of like that.
No.
We created a verb here out of Tommy's 0-10 week from earlier in the year. You really Tommy the week. I kind of like that. We might have to
you're
see
welcome.
if that's got some staying power.
Yeah, that's that's a promo right Savage. There. That's a promo right there.
I'm glad that you're just now coming up with this on our last week of making picks.
Well, there's still next week.
Because that would have been really, really annoying if that had happened all season long.
Yeah, there's still rest
right.
of the
So
year.
this is it. This is the last week of the picks, Paul. So you've got some decisions to make here.
Yeah.
Let's get into the games. We'll take them in chronological order. We'll take the lines right now as listed on CBSSports.com. We start with the Texans and the Ravens. Boy, oh boy. Am I excited about this game? Am I excited about the opportunity for the upstart Texans? Am I excited to see what D'Amico Ryans, one of the great defensive players and minds in football, has in store and in mind to try to close the gap on the team that has been the most dominant this year? 9.5 points the Ravens are favored by at home. It feels like they haven't played a meaningful football game in a month. Their starters haven't played in a while. Fellas, I'm going to bet history here. Lamar Jackson has not proven to us that he can be great in this spot yet. It's been a minute, but he hasn't. And so 9.5 points for one of the hot, swaggy teams in football is too many points for me. I'm taking the Texans, and I'm going to take the 9.5 points here. I think they can keep it close, if not have a puncher's chance to win it. And I like the Texans. This thing for the Chiefs is playing out how I'd hoped. I'd hoped Houston could win, or Cleveland would have been okay too. To go to Baltimore, get that win, bring the AFC Championship back to Arrowhead Stadium for the Chiefs, which means they would have to go on the road to beat Buffalo. But I'm going to take the Texans. I'm going to take the 9.5 points, and I think they've got a slight chance to win that sucker outright. Paul?
Well, you just have made my day because I was just sure you would take the Ravens. I mean, the Ravens have what? an MVP possibility in most valuable player. It's a team that's rested up. It's a team that's focused. It's a team that's talented. I think we would all agree, Tommy, and I know you'd agree with this too, that the Ravens are a very physical football team on both sides of the football. And, I mean, you don't get to where they are right now, number 1 seed, without being physical in the NFL. Man, oh, man, Jacob, this was the one that I thought I was going to have to go out on a limb and take the Texans because I think that 9.5 is not enough points. I'm taking the Ravens. The Cinderella factor for the Texans is probably running out this week. I'm taking the Ravens, and I would take the Ravens whether you were taking the Texans or not.
Interesting. They played in the regular season opener, Tommy. It's silly to even look at that.
Oh, my gosh. Yes.
But what I think you can look at is Lamar Jackson was not good in that game, right? C.J. Stroud was his first game as a pro.
That's right.
But it wasn't Lamar Jackson's first game as a pro, and he was not very good in that game.
He's gotten pretty good since then.
What do you think, Tom?
Yeah, this is the most difficult game of the weekend for me to pick, and it's really because I love both of these teams, and I've been high on both of these teams all season long. Jacob, you know I've been a Ravens fan or apologist this entire season, a supporter of theirs. You know, even when you really weren't, I was saying Baltimore, Baltimore, Baltimore in the AFC. On the flip side, man, it's been so much fun to watch the way the Texans have grown and evolved and built their program this entire season with CJ Stroud. I love what Nico Collins brings to the table. Nobody gives Devin Singletary enough credit. D'Amico Ryans is a rookie head coach. They've got everything in place to have an upset against the Ravens. As much as I love the Ravens, and I think that Lamar Jackson is playing great, and and I think the Ravens are overall collectively the best team in the playoffs right now. The Texans are playing with house money. So am I. I'm going to take Houston. I'll take the 9.5.
All right. So in the standings, that allows so basically what's going to happen, and I don't know if Tommy's pride will let him do this. He's basically going to have to pick everything that I pick if Paul chooses to go away from me. But I don't suspect that either one of you are going to pick based on that. I think you're going to pick based on what you think is going to happen. All right. Let's go into the next one here. Packers-Niners. This one, to me, is the hardest for me to decide which side to go to. It's also 9.5 points. You got a very similar situation, right? First year quarterback, upstart team, a lot of good young players against the team perceived to be the best in the league, in its conference, I should say. I'm going to go the other way on this one. I like the Packers. What they did was impressive. I don't think that Kyle Shanahan will be outcoached the way that Mike McCarthy was. I don't, it's going to lean into me. It'll be a big Christian McCaffrey game, and it'll be a big defense game for San Francisco. I think 50.5 is too many points. If the Packers can do that again, and I think they deserve more credit than they've gotten to this year, they're on the right direction. But the Niners are healthy right now. They're rested. I'm going to take the Niners. I think they can cover the number, 9.5 points. Paul, what do you think?
Did you not see how the Packers controlled the line of scrimmage?
I did.
We talked about this when you weren't in the other day on Wednesday, I believe, when Tommy and I were doing the show. And we talked about just how well the Packers ran inside zone, cutback. In fact, inside zone, cutback. They blew off the line, the defensive line for Dallas. Now, I know everybody says, well, that's a D-line meant to rush the passer. They're not as big. 49ers will be a little more physical, I believe, up front on the run than the Cowboys were. But I'll tell you what, I was impressed with the way the Packers ran the football. They came off the line, they locked up their guy, and they drove. And I really was impressed with that. And because of that, whether you were taking, here's another game where we're actually on the opposite side again. I'm going to take the Packers. And this is not because I think that the Packers will win this game. I don't know if they will, but 9.5 points is a lot. And if you can control the football like the Packers intend to control the football, and keep the football out of the hands of the 49ers. Well, I guess this comes down to who runs the football the best, the 49ers or the Packers. And right now, guys, I'm fairly impressed with the Packers and their ability to run the football. I'm taking the Packers.
I like the Packers. I mean, for the same reasons, right, Tommy, that we like the Texans, kind of.
One major difference, though, between the Cowboys defense and the 49ers defense is that the 49ers have a couple of guys by the name of Chase Young and Nick Bosa, and the Cowboys don't. Now, the Cowboys have Micah Parsons, and they've got some really talented defensive players, but the Niners defense as an overall unit is playing significantly better than the Cowboys did a week ago and even down the stretch in the regular season. For that reason, I'm going to take the 49ers, and I'm going to lay the points. I think that the Packers are they're fun to watch, and Jordan Love has came into his own. There's no doubt about that. It was incredible to watch the way they beat up on Dallas a week ago, and nobody really saw that coming. I just have a hard time thinking that they're going to be able to follow that up in back-to-back weeks. So I'll take the 49ers. I'm going to lay the 9.5.
If I lay a 3-team parlay, for instance, which I love to do, this will be the game I don't include. I'm having a hard time with this game. And I hopefully that means it's a great game to watch. Don't get me wrong. I would love to see the 49ers lose. I don't particularly like either of these teams, but you've got good stories all over the place. All right, Bucs-Lions. Buccaneers go on the road. They're 6.5-point dogs in Detroit. The weather notwithstanding, if you guys saw that clip.
Yes, I did.
Yeah, the weather will not be a factor.
I hadn't seen it, but Tommy showed it to me on a break on Wednesday. That's a
tough day at the office.
That was downright
That's a tough day at the office.
Yeah, it is.
But it won't be a factor. They'll be okay in the AC there in Detroit. I like Detroit here. The Bucs have been fun to watch. The Bucs have been a great story. So have the Lions. I think the Lions right now are significantly better than what the Eagles have been. I think they've got, as much buzz and energy and momentum, and that place is going to be electric. And I think that they can establish themselves and sort of control things on the ground in a way that Philadelphia couldn't. Maybe take some air out of the ball for Baker Mayfield. I like the Lions. I'll lay the points, 6.5. Paul, if you're going to win this thing, you got to ride. You got to ride that bake train into Detroit.
You did that on purpose. I know you did.
Yeah, because now I'm making you pick against your man Dan Campbell.
No, let me get this straight. So if I go ahead and take the Lions and we both get that right,
you can't win the contest,
but I can tie.
Yep. Am I playing for ties? Where are you? Is this soccer?
Oh God! You know something that was uncalled for. That was totally uncalled for. Gosh, Tommy, what would you advise? Give me a little help, Tommy. What should I
not giving you anything?
Oh, come on!
I'm not giving you anything because I'm trying to take second place from you. So I'm not going to give you any advice.
Oh, so you want me to take the Bucs, don't you? You want me to take the Bucs?
That's up to you.
Because I don't think this is going to be as close a game as 6.5. I think the Lions will have the ability to control the football and literally win by 2 touchdowns, maybe more. So I'm really I'm playing for the tie. Oh man,
come on, playing for the tie. Okay. That's cowardly.
All right, this is the one time.
Cowardly, Paul. That's cute. That's cute, Savage. Play for the tie.
This, Jan. Any advice, Jan? Hop on real quick. What would you do?
I'm just picturing Coach Savage in the locker room at halftime, down 10. All right, fellas, let's get out there and tie him up.
Oh my gosh!
If you tie, you get first place 2 years in a row.
Oh.
If you take second place, that championship is just gone.
That's right. Still champion. Coach.
Or you could win it outright.
Or you can win it outright. Yeah. They're trying to talk you into it. I'm maybe a little sense here. It's just up to you.
Jad,
I'm going to get canceled for all the cliches I want to use right now.
Well,
so I
I'll
have
tell
to
you
be
what,
really
Jad.
careful.
Jad, you're a wise man. You know something, Jad? Thank you for that. I still don't know what to do. This is really embarrassing. I'm really torn, guys. Do you sense it? I am really, really torn. I'll take the Bucs. Golly.
There we go. That a boy.
Let's go. You guys shamed me into it. You ought to be ashamed of yourselves.
Yeah, you're too old for peer pressure, but I appreciate the sentiment there. All right, Tommy, that makes it easy for you.
Yeah, I'm going to take the Lions.
Yeah,
that's an easy pick for me. Now, I love the Buccaneers. I love what Baker Mayfield has done. I've been on the Bucs for a while, and I don't believe in the Lions overall, but I think that this is an easy game to pick.
Yeah, Tommy,
I just think it's just a good matchup. Look, the Lions are not some dominant team that makes this blatantly obvious. They're not that.
Right.
But they do have the ability on paper to control this game the way they want to. They've got Montgomery and Gibbs and one of the best offensive lines in football and a quarterback who is perfectly fine taking things in small chunks. They can just control the clock. Baker Mayfield's killing people through the air. Take that away from Baker Mayfield, right? And you're going to be in much better position.
Right.
But the Lions are not some team impervious to losing outright to Tampa on the road. I mean, Tampa could absolutely cover that number. They could absolutely win that game. So we're giving you a hard time. I don't think it's some absurd island you're on taking the Buccaneers the way they've been playing. They just dominated Philadelphia. They can beat the Lions.
Yeah, but who isn't dominating Philadelphia at this point right now? By the way, Tommy, just let me ask you, what would you have done? If you or me? Would you have played for the tie, or would you do what I did and that's take the Bucs? Seriously, what would you have done?
Let it ride, baby. You got to go for the win.
Go for the win. Okay, well, I think I probably
did. It's a no-brainer.
I did the right thing. But I don't know that it's the right thing for the pick, because I honestly think that the Lions win by a touchdown. I really do. I really think the Lions win by a touchdown.
Yeah, we'll put a big asterisk on that for our betting friends.
Oh, good.
All three of us do like the Lions.
Yes, we
in the number there.
That is.
So the contest and the actual bets are a little bit different.
Right.
I will say this, though. Most of the time when that happens, we're wrong, right? Most of the time, at least like anecdotally, when I'm talking to betting people and everybody's in consensus on something,
right.
You should run away as fast as you can, right? And I don't know where the betting money and the trends and all that and the sharp money, but it does feel a little like that with this one, where it's like I think 85% of the public would look at that and say Lions, and that's usually really, really dangerous.
Yeah.
So we'll see about that. We'll keep an eye on that game. This next one gets interesting. So the Bills, the number is moved back to 3, which means I think that more money is headed toward the Bills than the Chiefs. It had been down as low as 2.5. So it's now up to 3. The Bills are favored at home. No surprise. The Bills won the regular season meeting. I did this exercise yesterday at KWCH, and I went through each of the last 6 games, the 6 games that these two quarterbacks have played against each other, and just sort of compared the numbers. And I think before I did that, I assumed it would either be a dead heat tie or Mahomes would have been a little better in those games. Each of them have won 3 of them, by the way. The reality is, though, that's not the case. Allen has been on paper better than Mahomes in this series. He's thrown fewer interceptions. He has been a dynamic runner in this series. And so what's interesting about this is those are the things that the Chiefs can't let happen in this game, right? Mahomes can't throw interceptions. They cannot let Josh Allen be a dynamic runner. So history will have to go away from the trends we've seen. Now, it hasn't been that way every game. These are the averages of the series between those two that I'm talking about. I do like the Chiefs. You guys know I like the Chiefs. I've been on this for 2 months, 3 months, however long it's been, that if they go to this way, they are good enough to win a Super Bowl. They are this way now, so I can't back off of that now, especially when I'm getting points, especially when Patrick Mahomes is an underdog. I think it's going to be another classic. I can't wait for it. I think it's going to be another epic game that will be down to the wire, as it always is lately. I love it, but I also love those points. I think the Chiefs win it outright, so I'm certainly going to take the 3 points. It's right there in front of the Chiefs. They know exactly what they have to do. And I think they're capable here lately of doing what it is that they have to do. I'm going to take the Chiefs. I'm going to take the points, Paul.
Well, I like the way you phrased that, because I could possibly take the Chiefs too. But let me just reevaluate this. I mean, Josh Allen is playing really good football. This is a game in Buffalo, so the Chiefs have to travel. And then you arrive where you're going. You leave, 10-degree weather, and you arrive at 0-degree weather. Weather again, if I'm not mistaken, is to be a factor again for this particular weekend in Buffalo. And with that being said, listen, Buffalo's a good football team, fellas. It's a good physical football team. And with a Josh Allen and his receiving core, fellas, I have no problem whatsoever with taking the Buffalo Bills. I will lay the 3 points, and I'm taking the Bills. And that was an easy pick for me.
Yeah, I mean, I think it is an easy pick. The Bills are favored at home. Like I don't think
they're good.
I think
football.
I'm
Yeah,
probably.
right.
I would say I'm in the minority by saying I think the Chiefs will win this game. That I will say with some confidence. Tommy, what do you think here?
Let me give you some numbers here really quick about Patrick Mahomes. In the playoffs, he's 10-5 against the spread and 12-3 straight up. That rate is tied with Terry Bradshaw for the second best of any quarterback in the Super Bowl era. On top of that, as an underdog, and we're talking about the regular season and the playoffs combined, in his career, Patrick Mahomes is 9-2-1 against the spread as an underdog, which he is in this game. This is only the second playoff game in Patrick Mahomes' career that he's been an underdog. The first one was the Super Bowl a year ago against the Eagles. We all know how that turned out. Kansas City won that game. This is the first true road game of Patrick Mahomes' playoff career. Knowing the way that he is against the spread as an underdog and in his career overall, give me 3 points. Give me the Chiefs as an underdog. I'm taking Kansas City on the road. I'll take the points. I'm going to bet them outright to win the game. I think it's going to be another classic, but I do think Kansas City covers.
Yeah, I'm with you. We've talked about it and we'll get into the game specifically here when we come back of like X's and O's, what we think keys are and need to happen and everything else. The picks did go the way that they needed to go to shake up the standings. That was the only way it could have happened. And honestly, I think we only had one outlier to go against the brain, and that was Paul having to take the Buccaneers.
I did have
keep
to
it in
take
play.
them. Other than that, I could make a case for either team on all the three other games. I could make a case for either one, really.
I can make a case for the Bucks. I mean, it isn't that hard. This should be a great. This should be a great playoff weekend. It should be a good playoff weekend. What's wild about it is to consider the possibility that some combination of Houston, Green Bay, or Tampa could be playing in conference championship games. We talked about all year that felt like there was a little bit more parity this year than in normal years. And the fact that as we've watched this season play out, those three teams could be in a conference championship game potentially. That's what we're talking about. The top to the bottom is not as different, I think, this year as it has been in some years. There is not that juggernaut. The 2-1 seeds are certainly the closest thing to it, but I think they each have their flaws. Let's take a quick break. We'll come back. When we return, we'll get into the nitty-gritty on Chiefs Bills. Keys to the game, what needs to happen for a Chiefs win. If they get it done, we'll go over all of it as we make our way through this Friday edition of Sports Daily. All right, welcome back in, everybody. Back into Sports Daily here on this Friday. Chiefs games available over on KNSS on the Odyssey app. You can tune in Sunday night for NFL divisional round action. The Chiefs and Bills battle in Buffalo, or you can simply download the Odyssey app and search for KNSS at kickoff. Let's talk about that game. The Chiefs, I mean, the perspective from the Chiefs, Tommy, to me is the same as it has been going back a few weeks. I do think the one key and the one X factor that they're going to face in this game that they haven't in others is Josh Allen, his ability to run the ball. They have historically, he's had good running performances against the Chiefs. So has Patrick Mahomes, by the way, which nobody talks about, but he has too. But you can't let him break off the long run like he did against Pittsburgh. You can contain him. You can spy him. You can do all those things. He's probably going to get his to some degree. But just like it was against the Dolphins and those dynamic runners, you can't let him have the big one, I think, in this one. And if they can do that, I think they can handle the rest defensively naturally.
I think that one other thing to keep in mind with what the Bills offense brings to the table is the way that they utilize their tight ends and the success that Josh Allen had finding Dawson Knox and Dalton Kincaid against the Steelers. And so you can, put L'Jarius Sneed on Steph Diggs, and you can do all of that with the receivers. But then you also have to keep in mind what those tight ends can do. And there's not just one of them, there's two of them. And then, oh, by the way, Josh Allen can also break off a run. So there are a lot of different options that
big
Sean
game for the
McDermott's
linebackers
offense
then,
has.
huh? Yeah, it's
Absolutely.
a linebacker
Nick Bolton's
game.
got to come up big, and absolutely. So, let L'Jarius Sneed do his thing that he's always done in locking down number one receivers, but you got to keep your eyes on the multiple tight ends.
Paul, how hard is it for a linebacker to have to both be worried about coverage then on a tight end and a running quarterback like Josh Allen? Well, and quite frankly, a running game in general, because James Cook has been really good too. Yeah. But to know that you've got to defend both of those places, how difficult is that on linebackers?
Well, it's difficult, and it's difficult psychologically because actually in most defensive schemes, everybody's got a gap. Everybody's got a gap. D lineman got a gap. You get that filled. Linebackers got a gap. If you can just, if you can concentrate. I know it sounds so simplistic. It sounds so easy. Why do we even need football coaches? But as long as you play your gap, there should be no place to run the football. In other words, if the Kansas City Chiefs take care of every gap that is assigned to a football player on that team, then there'll be no place to run the football. But that's not usually how it works because different linebackers have different styles. Some play downhill, some slide side to side. Everybody's a little different. But Cook is a good running back, and he's gonna make some things happen. And of course, the offensive line comes off the ball. Listen, the Kansas City Chiefs have had a good, I didn't say great, I said a good defense for most of the year. But there have been times, fellas, where the defense is susceptible to the run with a good offensive line, with a good running back. Josh Allen doesn't help because you almost have to, it's almost like having a second back. If there's one back in the backfield, it's almost like having two backs because he is capable of keeping and running and doing whatever that is. But the Chiefs have got to control every gap. The Chiefs control every gap. Then this is going to be the Chiefs game. This is basically going to be a game, and I don't mean to boil it down to a very, very simplistic thing. But if the Chiefs take care of every gap and they control the run, they control Josh Allen, they control Cook, they control whatever the Bills are trying to do with the run, they win this football game, fellas. Control the run, win the football game. That's as simple as it gets, Tommy.
Yeah, that's interesting.
I think that
you think, Tommy, that goes both ways, though? Like for both teams?
I think to an extent. I mean, we know how Isaiah Pacheco has ran the football for Kansas City's offense and how dominant he's been, especially in breaking tackles and running through tackles throughout the course of the season. So I think that both of those things can be the same for both teams. But I think what is really important to keep in mind with Kansas City's defense, and I brought it up before as we've been talking about this game, is the way that Steve Spagnuolo blitzes Josh Allen. I want to see really well thought out and well-timed blitzes. You can't blitz Josh Allen all the time because he will shred you, not unlike the way that Patrick Mahomes shreds defenses when they try to blitz him. So I think that you've got to time it well. You've got to make sure that if you are blitzing, that you've got additional coverage to take into account for the fact that Allen can take off and run. That's all going to be a challenge. And I've wanted to see this matchup again. And I'm so excited for it because that's the chess match, is how do the Chiefs defense blitz and what does Josh Allen do in response? In it several different times in these matchups before. And I really want to see, like you always say, there's a game inside the game. That's the game inside the game that I want to watch for this weekend, is how the Chiefs blitz with Josh Allen and how they respond with the Bills offense.
So the Chiefs, to Paul's point, have been, as good at a pass defense as you're probably going to find, but not as sort of middle of the pack as a run defense. But I think that's a little bit because of how well they defend the pass. When you said good but not great defense, though, Paul, that's where I would disagree. Kansas City is the second best defense in football in both points allowed and yards allowed this season. I do think they're a great defense. And I've said forever, I think that's why this is the way that they can win a Super Bowl. We're just not used to it, and we haven't been. But they do have a great defense. They have the best defense, I think, remaining in the playoffs. Baltimore has been better slightly by a points per game level, but not as good in a yards per game level, right? So you can make the case for Baltimore. We've talked about how much, you like San Francisco's defense, right? To some degree, they have not been as good as the Chiefs defense. And outside of, Cleveland, like this is the best defense in football, I think, that is sitting here right now. Baltimore has a case.
Then why am I so frustrated? Why?
Well, because there have been a couple of games where running backs have had nice days, but again, when a team can't throw the ball and they're going to try, I think it's probably pretty difficult to have both, the best pass defense, the best run defense, those kinds of things. But they have dynamic pass rushers. They have all these things that would lead teams to run the ball, and they were missing some linebackers for a large portion of the season, remember, too. They had key injuries at that spot throughout the year to both Gay and Bolton that have hindered them. Those guys are all playing now.
Right.
Like everybody's ready to roll.
If you want to talk about key injuries, that really has hurt the Bills. I mean, they've been decimated in the last couple of weeks with injuries. And by the way, I didn't even realize it until I looked it up a little while ago. Steph Diggs is on the injury report. He didn't practice yesterday. And so I don't know exactly what that looks like. Gabe Davis is also on the injury report. He didn't play last week. So they've got some injuries with their wide receivers, and then they've got injuries on the defensive side too. Going into this game, it seems like Kansas City is significantly healthier than Buffalo is.
Yeah, and that's the other key part. It's a good point. Kansas City has hit that thing that you have to hit for any team to have a chance at a Super Bowl, and that's good health. They're there as much as any team left. There won't be a matchup if the Chiefs continue on the run where I say, now it's a bad matchup for the Chiefs, because that dynamic doesn't really exist for them. When you have the best defense, you have the best defense, right? That's the ultimate equalizer, and you have Patrick Mahomes. And you have a Patrick Mahomes now who is able to funnel things to two guys, and it's working. Two guys and a good run game. They don't have to use the other. We wondered all year, like, how long are they going to keep trying to get one of these receivers to do what they... The reality is now they don't need those guys. Well, they don't need anybody besides Rice, Kelsey, and Pacheco on that offense.
They have found them.
And, it falls off a cliff after that. Sky Moore is back at practice. I don't think he'll play. I don't know what that means, but you're looking. It's like we talked about Chelsea with the props on Rice and Kelsey. I mean, I think at this point, when both of those guys are probably flirt with 10 targets each, it's pretty hard not to put them and include them in the things that you're going to do, in the betting world.
Right.
It lines up for the Chiefs. Now they got to go get it done. And Buffalo's really good, and Buffalo's favored for a reason. And Josh Allen has the element that we probably don't talk enough about. He's got to get that skeleton out of his closet too. He's this great talent, but he's got to be able to get it done. And he hasn't been able to ultimately get over that final hump. And they've got that going and that chip on their shoulder too, Paul, which we know is a great motivator in this game.
It is. And I don't want to rely on cliches, but this game could just easily come down to basically who has the most turnovers. Well, I'll tell you what, time of possession is going to be important. You want to control the football, because when you control the football, you keep the football out of your opponent's hands. So time of possession, but turnovers, my goodness. And particularly turnovers on the other end of the field. You do not want those. You just can't have turnovers. And this game could easily come down to who possesses the football, who makes first downs, who controls the football, who controls the clock. Fellas, this may end up being one game that just is really simple. Control the football, keep the football out of the other team's hands, because both teams will be capable of scoring and controlling the football. So I think it's kind of simple in a lot of ways. Am I missing anything on that?
No, I really don't think they get the field goal kicker advantage too, which I do think matters.
I mean, you go back to the other matchup in the regular season between these two teams, and it wasn't like we were looking at a high-flying, shootout in that game. Final score was 20-17. And so I would imagine that we see more of that in this playoff game. And especially if the Chiefs want to lean on the run, which they should with Isaiah Pacheco, and if the Chiefs defense can limit what Josh Allen can do on the ground, it should be again, a relatively low scoring game. I'm not thinking it's going to be, 3-0, but it should be a relatively low scoring game, I think, knowing the way that they matched up earlier this regular season.
I mean, you can almost keep it simple too to betting. Like if you like the Chiefs, you take the Chiefs, you take Rashee Rice's over, you take Kelsey's over, you take Pacheco's over. Like the offense is as simple in Kansas City as it has been in a very long time. This spread the ball around, do all that kind of thing offense is out the window because Mahomes knows he can't afford to trust those guys. Like you're to the point now where we're done with all that. Like now you got to go with what you know. And what they know is Rice, it's Kelsey, it's Pacheco, it's a great defense, and it's a great field goal kicker. And that is absolutely enough to win a Super Bowl.
By the way,
think about what's on the line here. Think about what's on the line here for Kansas City real quick, because we talked about before how we kind of like the matchup with Baltimore and Houston. You could have an AFC championship game back at Arrowhead for another season. That's what's on the line. What's on the line for Kansas City, a slightly different path than what we're used to seeing from them to make it to a Super Bowl. But man, they could absolutely potentially have another home game in the AFC championship.
Right. And one thing you pointed out just so briefly, Jacob, and really this is something to think about: field goal kicking. Yeah. Man, who's got the advantage on that? I mean, do you trust, right? Would you trust your kicking team on?
They both have good ones.
Tyler Bass is a good kicker.
But Butker's been the best this year, outside of maybe Aubrey and Dallas, and that's been wild. By the way, another thing, Florio, Pro Football Talk, floated out on the Zach Gelb show yesterday here on CBS Sports Radio that there are rumblings that this could be it for Andy Reid, and many of the coaches that are out there could be waiting if that's the case. Now, this is speculation, and
what?
I would say take it with a grain of salt.
Well, that's what I will do.
But you can go on the Odyssey app and listen to that yesterday from the Zach Gelb show. Florio floating around the possibility that exists and has been, kind of bandied about a little bit. But that's out there too, which if that's the case and players know it, you were talking about a motivating factor. Now, again, I have no idea. I've never heard anything like that outside of that yesterday. But it's out there. Go find it on the Odyssey app. 869-1240 is the KFH hotline. We'll come back. More Sports Daily right after this. All right. Welcome back in, everybody, to Sports Daily. It's Albracht, the Castor. It's Savage. Chad Chambers producing. We're having fun on a Friday. Thanks, everybody, for joining in on the fun, listening to us here on KFH, watching us on our video stream, Facebook, YouTube, Twitch. It's all available for you. So it's interesting. I brought up that little nugget that was dropped on the Zach Gelb show yesterday. It is curious, I think, a little bit that the massive names out there on the market are not moving yet. That's a little atypical, I think. You've got some real big time. I saw Vrabel interviewed with the Chargers, by the way, and I know that they've gone defense and it hasn't worked. I love that fit, but Belichick doesn't have a home. Harbaugh doesn't have a home if you think he's coming in. Vrabel doesn't have a home. Like, all these things are happening, and it is interesting. Saw that Kirk Cousins sort of said playing for Bill Belichick would be fun, as we wonder what he's going to do. And we've imagined that scenario of a combo package there to Atlanta between those two guys and how real a chance to win a Super Bowl might be there. Although Cousins still returning to Minnesota seems like a real possibility. But Tommy, it has been slow movement in the coaching world. And I suppose that would lead people to believe that if the Chiefs were remotely possible to come open, as we've seen major names step away, you'd wait on that job. I mean, if that was, and again, this is totally speculative based on something that somebody else said on the Zach Gelb show. But yeah, I mean, if you're going to have a chance at Mahomes, you just push pause on everything if you're one of these guys.
But didn't Andy Reid already come out and say that he's not retiring? I'm pretty sure he already came on the record and said he's not even thinking about retiring.
I think he said he's not talking about it. I think he said he's not even talking about it. So, and Florio brought that out to say maybe he's not talking about it. I don't know. I don't think Andy Reid's retiring. Let me just put that out there. Right? Yeah. I don't think that's unlikely at all. I don't think it's happening. I agree, because he loves it too much, and he's got Mahomes, and they're comfortable, and everything seems to be going well, and everybody gets along. And why, unless and Andy Reid's not as old as those other guys, not quite, and he's obviously enjoys himself. He's only 65. I think people think he's older than he is, and it's because he's been coaching for so dang long. If he became a head coach in 1999, right, which was how many years ago? 20, technically speaking, 25. Almost 25. 25 years ago, when he's 65. So he became a head coach at 40. He was young at the time, and I do think there's a perception that he's older than he is. He's 65. Yeah. I feel like he's got a lot of gas left in the tank.
And if I'm Andy Reid, by the way, why would I walk away this season with the struggles offensively and, all of that's happened? I mean, wouldn't you have walked away when you won your second Super Bowl a season ago against the Eagles, against your former team that you coached for a long time? Wouldn't that have been the swan song for Andy Reid to go out? Why would you coach another year? And it's been a challenging year by all accounts, and not quite up to the Chiefs standards that they've built over the last 5 or 6. Why would you walk away this season? That doesn't make any sense to me.
I don't know, Paul. You've coached well into your what are we into? Well into your upper 70s, 80s here. Like I so old, in fact, that you can't figure out how to unmute your microphone. I mean, it's amazing. Like these basic skills that we have, like you can still coach at that age, right? Oh man, you made that so perfect for us. Thank you, Paul.
Well, you're entirely welcome. But by the way,
Paul's screaming into his microphone because we're making fun of how old he is and he can't figure out how to unmute it. That was perfect.
Well, that's good. Thank you for that. But the point is that I guess, like with Andy Reid, do you make commercials with Patrick Mahomes on insurance? I mean, do you do those kind of things if you're going to retire? Do you, if you were going to retire, wouldn't you have retired? Wouldn't you have retired when you were in pain? What, 2 years ago?
He seems too happy to retire. That, to your point, yeah.
And there's guys.
Speaking of commercials, Jim Mora's like 90, and he just did a DraftKings commercial.
He did.
So
pretty
good.
Was it playoffs?
It was.
Nice,
but there's all kinds of reasons why I don't believe this, and he's having too much fun. He's doing commercials. And by the way, what's the one ingredient that you got to have if you want to win? And Andy Reid has the potential of winning Super Bowls from here on out. He's got Patrick Mahomes. Do you walk away from Patrick Mahomes? I say the answer is no, you don't.
Hey, can I just say really quick, Paul, you don't look a day over 87.
Oh,
so that's good.
Thank you for that.
He's got the Taylor Swift fountain of youth too. Life can't be better, right?
That's right.
If you're
Life
Andy
is
Reid.
pretty darn good.
You got everybody making memes about your mustache and the icicles. Life's good for the big fella. All right, we'll come back. We'll wrap it up next.
Go Hog Wild Pit Barbecue. Hog Wild, get some for you.
It's $5.99 barbecue time. Hurry to Hog Wild for a complete barbecue meal that's sure to fill you up for only $5.99. Josh Wissing, Hog Wild partner and general manager at 47th and South Broadway, has got all the details on this smoking deal.
Get a Hog Wild sandwich loaded with our award-winning meats like pulled pork, pulled chicken, or hot links, plus your choice of classic side and a drink for just $5.99.
Upgrade your sandwich to beef brisket for just $1 more. Join us for lunch or dinner. You can also order online at GoHogWild.com. Hog Wild Pit Barbecue, 6 locations in Wichita, also in Derby, El Dorado, Hutchinson, and Salina.
Go Hog Wild Pit Barbecue. Hog Wild, get some for you. But don't be late, we close at 8.
The biggest winner in the big game could be you. Thanks to BetMGM, the king of sportsbooks is offering new customers a chance to score $158 in bonus bets instantly. That's right, instantly. Just download the BetMGM app and sign up using bonus code BUZZER. Then place a $5 moneyline wager on the big game. You'll receive $158 in bonus bets instantly, regardless of your wager's outcome. Don't miss your opportunity to cross the goal line on the money line as pro football's top teams clash for the championship. Can't be in Vegas for the big game? Then bring the big game excitement to you with the king of sportsbooks. BetMGM and GameSense remind you to play responsibly. See BetMGM.com for terms. 21 plus only. Kansas only. New customer offer. Subject to eligibility requirements. Rewards issued as non-withdrawable bonus bets that expire in 7 days. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. In partnership with Kansas Crossing Casino and Hotel.
Patterson Legal is the way to go. Call 550-0000.
Hey there, it's Delana from Truck Stuff with a few items that come in handy this time of year. We have the largest selection around of WeatherTech and Husky floor liners to keep the mud and slush off your carpet. Mud flaps and wheel well liners also offer nice protection. And don't forget, bug shields are great at protecting against rock chips from the salt and sand on the road. We also offer remote start and heated seat covers. So stop by today for your winter gear at Truck Stuff at the corner of Central and Washington.
Check us out, Truck Stuff.
Looking for heating pellets? Look no further than Pride Ag Ace Hardware. Pride Ag carries the very best Pennington Premium Oak Pellets to keep you warm this winter. Stop by 5204 North Mays Road. Pride Ag Ace Hardware, where we take pride in serving you.
At Grainger, we're for the ones who specialize in saving the day and for the ones who've mastered the art of keeping business moving. We offer industrial-grade supplies for every industry with same-day pickup and next-day delivery on most orders, all backed by real people ready to help. So you can get the right answers and products right when you need them. Call quickgrainger.com or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.
Wendy's new breakfast 2 for $3 Biggie bundles let you create your own delicious combo. Choose from a sausage biscuit, egg and cheese biscuit, small seasoned potatoes, and a medium hot coffee. But it's obvious which combo's the best. Sausage biscuit and small seasoned potatoes. Well, maybe it's the fresh cracked egg and cheese biscuit with a medium hot coffee. Or 2 savory sausage biscuits. Whichever you pick, you can't go wrong. Choose wisely. Choose Wendy's new 2 for $3 Biggie bundles.
Limited time only. U.S. price and participation may vary. Not valid in a combo. Single item at regular price.
The KFH Studios, powered by Devon James Injury Lawyers. Call 888-8888. That's 888-8888.
Pro football, we are into the NFL playoffs, the conference semifinals, 4 games this weekend. The last game will be Sunday evening, the Kansas City Chiefs in Buffalo taking on the Bills, a team that's on a 6-game winning streak. For Chiefs quarterback Patrick Mahomes, this will be his first road playoff game in his career. as the Chiefs have played a ton of home playoff games in his career and Super Bowls, but never actually on the road. The Bills did beat the Chiefs in Arrowhead Stadium 5 weeks ago, 20-17. Remember that game when Kadarius Toney lined up offsides on a play that might have had the game-winning touchdown? The Chiefs are an underdog by a field goal in Buffalo. Mitch Holthus and the Chiefs Radio Network. Pregame coverage at 4 o'clock Sunday afternoon. Game kicks off at 5:30 p.m. Sunday. Listen to the Chiefs Radio Network on 98.7 and 1330 KNSS. National coverage on the Westwood One Radio Network is right here on KFH as the Chiefs play their first road playoff game in 8 years on Sunday. I'm Ted, the Sports Head.
Wichita's most listened to sports radio, 97.5 and 1240 KFH.
All right, here we go. Busy weekend coming up. You've got special programming beginning Saturday, 1:45, the Shocker Women at Tulsa. 3 o'clock, the NFL's over on KNSS for Houston and Baltimore. K-State men's hoops here against Oklahoma State on KFH. Pregame coverage at 5. And then 7 o'clock NFL coverage also on KNSS is the Green Bay-San Francisco game. Sunday, Shocker men at USF. That's over on KEYN as always at 10. 1:30 NFL coverage, Tampa, Detroit. Chiefs Radio Network on KNSS. You will get that at 4 o'clock, and you'll get the national coverage beginning at 5:30 of Chiefs Bills. Fellas, let's see how the picks turn out. Jad, nice week on the board there for Tommy, Jad, Paul. I'm Jacob. We'll see you Monday.